Zac Goldsmith, you're standing to be Tory mayoral candidate. Why do you want this job? Is it the Tories want you to have it, or is it for you?
No, I hope the Tories do, because it'll be an open primary in the next month and they'll take a view. But London is the greatest city on earth. It's a cliche, but it's true. It is the greatest city on earth, and it is and it can become even greater. And a campaigning mayor has the capacity to do that. And if I were mayor, I would be that, a campaigning mayor.
And what will the difference be between you and Boris in tone and priority?
I mean, I think Boris has been a magnificent mayor. He's brought huge investment to the city. He's created jobs. I think everyone knows that London is the greatest city on earth as a consequence, I think, partly at least of his legacy. But we have huge challenges now, and they're piling up in relation to housing, in relation to transport, and in relation to the living environment. We have an air pollution problem in London, which I think most people are now aware of in a way that they weren't 4 or 5 years ago. So there are problems that need to be dealt with if London is to retain that magical status that it has.
As people do see you as the Green candidate, is there anything particularly that you would do for London?
I think we're all now becoming green. Actually, I don't think it's something unique to me. I think air quality is a massive concern. We're told thousands of people every year as a consequence of air pollution. I think it's not that hard to imagine cleaning out London's air and improving quality of life as a consequence of that. But it's not just about air pollution. It's about green spaces, access to them, quality of them. It's about the nature of the new developments that we're going to need in London if we're to deal with the housing crisis, developments that add to rather than detract from communities. There's a lot that we can do. I mean, in a sense, you want a green thread to run through all decision-making, but you don't need necessarily dedicated green policies. All policies should be influenced by a regard for the living environment and so on.
And is a decision on what happens at Heathrow crucial?
Yeah, I think, not for me, I mean, it's crucial for hundreds of thousands of people. An expanded Heathrow would impact well over 1 million people in terms of noise. It would impact the whole of London in terms of air quality. You can't reconcile Heathrow expansion with any of the air quality targets we set ourselves, and it would be a catastrophic decision. So it's really important that the government gets this right, and I'm committed, as my constituents know, and I think most Londoners now know, I'm committed to doing everything I can to fight off that threat.
So is that going to take up most of your time over the next year?
No, we're going to have a decision from government in the next few months, so sometime in the autumn, we don't know when, and I'm convinced the government will make the right decision.
What if they don't?
Then I have to campaign on the issue, as I'm obliged to do. That's the basis on which I've been elected twice now in Richmond Park and North Kingston. But it is an issue for London. It's an important issue for London, not just my patch, but it is not the only issue. You can't, I think a successful mayoral candidate and a successful mayor needs to deal with the #1 issue in London, which is housing. I think if we we are at a point where Londoners, the very people who make London dynamic and special in the way that it is, are being priced out of the city. And if we don't deal with that, then there will be serious social ramifications, the likes of which we can't predict, but we know that it's not going to end happily. That's an absolute priority for whoever is elected mayor, and you just have to deal with it.
And you've said that if the airport decision doesn't go your way, you will call a by-election. When would you do that, and what would that mean?
I made a promise in 2008, so before I was ever elected, that if my party gave a green light for Heathrow expansion, I'd trigger a by-election, and it would be an automatic thing. So it's not something I'd want to do, incidentally, but it's an obligation I have. It's a promise I made. It's not an ambiguous promise. So if the party, the government now, gives a green light to expansion, I would have to trigger a by-election immediately.
And then would you stand as an independent mayor?
No, as an independent mayor, no. It's a separate issue. I'm seeking the nomination from my party at the moment, as you know. That process ends at the end of September. I want to be the Conservative candidate for mayor. I am a Conservative, but if I am the Conservative candidate for mayor and the backdrop, or a backdrop, is a green light for Heathrow expansion, then I'll be a Conservative candidate for mayor who was also campaigning against Heathrow expansion. I mean, I've looked at this issue ad nauseum since long before I became an MP. I'm absolutely convinced that it would be the wrong decision for London. It would be the wrong decision for the wider economy as well. If there was a absolutely bulletproof economic case for Heathrow expansion, then a mayor for London would have to take a different view. But it isn't. The economic case is very, very flimsy and flawed. And I am committed to trying to steer the government into the right direction, which is what I have been doing and I'll continue to do from whatever platform I have.
And what sort of campaign is it going to be over the next
the Mayoral campaign
for you? Yeah.
So we have about 5 weeks now before the members of the party in London, the Conservative Party in London, and other people who make the effort to sign up to an internet portal which is about to be made public can pay £1 in order to vote for the candidate they want. So my job at the moment is to persuade as many people as possible that I'm the candidate who's most likely to win for the party and the candidate who's most likely to deliver for London if I become mayor. That's my job over the next 5 weeks, and I'm out and about talking to as many members and activists and councillors and residents as I possibly can. That's the nature of the campaign for the next 5 weeks. If I'm selected, then it becomes a different campaign. Then it's about talking to London as a whole, and it's about putting forward the priorities, the vision, the policies, and trying to encourage as many people as possible to get involved in the campaign.
And who do you fear on the Labour side?
I mean, I fear all of them in a sense, that it's going to be a real battle. They all have strengths, they all have weaknesses as well. And it's very hard to predict, as we've seen with the leadership elections for the party, Labour Party, it's very hard to predict who is going to be selected, but whoever is selected, it'll be a tough fight for the Conservative candidate. We're starting, I think, slightly on the back foot. We're starting slightly later than the Labour Party, and we're starting with fewer votes. But this is not a Labour city any more than it's a Conservative city. Whoever wins is going to have to reach well beyond their party in order to have a hope of being elected. Do
you have a disadvantage following Boris as another Conservative Etonian?
No, I don't think so. I don't think voters are going to vote for any candidate on the basis of their background. They will vote for a candidate whose vision they can buy into, whose vision they like, and who they think can deliver that vision. So it's, and I hope my record as a campaigning backbench MP delivering consistently for my constituents will persuade people that I not only make promises, I keep them and I deliver for my constituents, that I stand up for the people I represent. That's what I've sought to do for the last 5 years, and I think I have done so.
What's your favourite spot in London?
My favourite spot has to be Richmond Park, where I grew up. It's one of the most magical places on earth, and it is one of the things that makes London absolutely unique, along with the other royal parks, obviously, but I have a particular soft spot for Richmond Park.
So will we see more green spaces in London under you?
I think people need to have access to green spaces, not necessarily the beautiful parks that we have. We're not going to be able to create any more royal parks, I don't think, but pocket parks, smaller areas, green spaces, absolutely. Everyone needs to have access to green spaces for their quality of life, for their sanity, for their mental health. It's absolutely essential, and particularly, I think, children.
And on transport, where are you on new cycle highways, on electric cars? Or how would you, if you waved a magic wand?
I would like to see us move very, very quickly towards having electric vehicles, full stop, not just private cars, but cabs and buses, works vehicles. We need to move as fast as we can towards an electric fleet, because that's the only way we're going to deal with the air quality problems we have, but it also solves all kinds of other problems as well, not least noise. And one of the bugbears that people have in London is the noise, the relentless noise of traffic. You deal with that through electric cars, electric vehicles. So that has to be a priority, and it's not that complicated. We can do it. The technology's there. Cycling, I think Boris has been a champion for cyclists. I don't think any British politician ever has put more emphasis on cycling than Boris has. We've seen almost 3 times as many people cycling now as compared with when he was first elected. I think there were 200 million cycle journeys last year, and that compares to 150 million cab journeys, so just to put it in context. So he has been a cycling mayor. The job now is to make cycling safer, and one of the things you need to do is tackle HGVs, which have a disproportionate impact in terms of the number of people killed on bikes. And again, you can do that. It is possible.
Would you ban them from rush hour?
You would want to restrict them during the pinch points, so particularly rush hour, but morning and afternoon. It's not difficult to do that. But you'd also want to ensure that every HGV has the sidebars and the sensors and the new technology to make them safer. It is possible to do what needs to be done in relation to HGVs and cycling. That's part of the story, but it's an important part.
And we're seeing at the moment in London what's been called Corbyn mania, of a large amount of particularly young people being caught up in this political movement. How would you challenge the appeal of someone like Jeremy Corbyn, who's not of your politics? Well,
I won't be having to challenge him. He's not going to be the London mayor, but I think
but
the reason...
of the left-wing
I know what you're saying. And I don't think this is a left-wing surge. I think this is a reaction by people who are mistrustful of politicians generally, and I think here we have a candidate who they may not necessarily agree with, but he says what he thinks. He calls a spoon, he's authentic. I know that's a term that's often used, but it's not a term that can often be used in relation to politicians. It can be in relation to Jeremy Corbyn. And I think that's important. People want to know where their politicians stand. They want to know that their politicians aren't just, subjecting themselves to voluntary lobotomies and doing what they're told by their parties. That's not what people want. It's not something I've ever been accused of, and nor will I ever be.
And you're up for the fight? Are your family on board for this?
Absolutely. My family are very much on board. It's a big fight, it's a big battle, it's a huge challenge, but it's an exciting one. And the outcome, if I'm elected, will be that I'll be able to really do some wonderful things for London.